always thought family was supposed to be your soft place to land, your safety net when the world turned sharp. But the thing about safety nets is that sometimes they're woven from barbed wire, and you don't realize until you're already tangled up, bleeding out your last ounce of trust. My name is Callista Everhart. I was born to a family who spoke about loyalty as though it was currency, but only spent it on each other in backhanded compliments and silent competitions. We're not some dynasty with old money or a mansion on a hill, just a middle-class cluster of siblings, cousins, and the inevitable chain of aunts and uncles who measure worth by who shows up for Sunday dinner. And I'd always shown up. Always. Until I didn't. I was 27 when I lost my job. The company I'd been loyal to for 5 years decided my position was redundant. That was the word they used. Not, "you're fired," but redundant, as though I was a leftover piece of furniture someone found gathering dust. I came home that day, sat on my sofa, and let the truth settle in my bones. I was unemployed, single, and alone in a city that felt too expensive for my dreams. I told my family, thinking they'd understand. They did not. At first they offered polite concern, gift-wrapped pity that tasted sour when I swallowed it. Then came the suggestions. Maybe I should move back home to save money. Maybe I should take a job at the grocery store until I figured things out. I wanted to scream that I wasn't lazy, that my degree wasn't worthless, that I was doing everything I could to land interviews. But in our family group chat, it's never a conversation, it's a performance. I spent weeks sending out CVs, rewriting my cover letters, preparing for interviews that led nowhere. Rent piled up like unopened bills. My nights bled into mornings, and somewhere between desperation and caffeine, I made a mistake. I asked my older brother Marcus for help. Marcus has always been the golden boy, 2 years older, straight-A student, football captain, father of 2 perfect kids, married to Clara who bakes Pinterest, perfect cupcakes. He loaned me £500. He told me not to worry. He told me to get back on my feet. 3 months later, I hadn't. The interest on my overdraft was eating me alive. The job market laughed in my face. One Thursday night, I opened our family group chat to share that I'd gotten a second interview. I was so excited, my fingers trembled over the screen. I hit send, expecting at least a thumbs up, maybe a good luck. Instead, I saw my name, my full name. Scrolling back in screenshots I wasn't supposed to see. They forgot I was still in the chat, or maybe they didn't care. I'll never know which is worse. Marcus. If Callista thinks she's getting out of paying me back, she's in for a surprise. Deadbeat. My mother. Don't say that. She's trying. Marcus. Trying what? She's been trying for months. She's just lazy. Always has been. Clara. I told you not to lend her money. She'll just waste it. She should get off her ass and get a real job instead of pretending she's better than us. My cousin Henry. If she needs more money, she can sell that old car. Deadbeat is right. The words blurred. My chest tightened like it was being squeezed by invisible hands. I wanted to shout at them through the phone. You don't know how hard I've been trying. You don't see the rejections, the interviews where they smile and say they'll call but never do. You don't see me skipping meals to stretch my budget. You don't see me at all. I spent that night wide awake, staring at the ceiling of my small flat while the note burned a hole in my mind. We're not finished with you. 4 words that crawled under my skin and made the shadows in my room feel alive. I'd always believed I could handle myself. I wasn't helpless, no matter what they said. But fear is a patient visitor. It knocks and knocks until you're too tired to stand guard. By dawn, I knew I couldn't ignore it. I grabbed my phone, my heart battering my ribs as I scrolled through my contacts. There was no one left to call. No best friend I could trust with this. No sibling who'd have my back. No mother I could run to crying the way I did when I scraped my knee at 6. I'd burned that bridge to ash. So I did what any desperate person does. I Googled how to handle anonymous threats. When should you go to the police? The advice was cold comfort. Gather evidence. Don't respond. Stay alert. Stay alert. I was already more alert than I'd ever wanted to be. I dug out a shoebox from under my bed. My makeshift memory vault. Inside were scraps from my old life. A birthday card from Dad before he passed away. A pressed daisy from my university campus. The note Marcus left on my graduation day. Proud of you, sis. I read that note over and over, the inked words mocking me. Proud of me. Until I needed him. Then I was a deadbeat. I tucked the threatening note beside those memories. If I went missing, I wanted someone to find it. I told myself that was enough. Then I triple-locked my door and tried to pretend my heart wasn't hammering so loud it felt like an alarm. Days passed. I worked my dull marketing job, plastering on smiles I didn't feel. I took a different route home each night. Checked over my shoulder so often that the corners of my eyes felt bruised. I told no one at work what was happening. How could I? I was the new girl. The quiet one in the corner cubicle who never came out for drinks. They didn't know the real me, and I didn't want them to. Not yet. The third envelope arrived while I was at work. I found it stuck to my door when I came home, flapping in the breeze like a taunt. No photo this time. Just a single line scribbled in the same jagged handwriting. Family always pays. I crumpled it in my fist, my breath fogging in the cold hallway. Family always pays. What did that mean? Was this about the screenshots? About the jobs they lost because of me? Or was someone else playing a cruel game? I thought about Marcus, his voice from the past. You think you're so smart, Callista, but you can't handle real life. You always run crying to someone to fix it. He used to say it like a joke, ruffling my hair. Now it echoed like a curse. I grabbed my keys and drove across town to my old neighborhood. The streets felt smaller than I remembered. Row houses pressed shoulder to shoulder, chipped fences leaning like tired sentries. I pulled up in front of Mum's place, killing the engine but not my nerves. It had been months since I'd seen her in person. I imagined her through the window, hair pulled back tight, a cardigan draped around her shoulders like armor, the ever-present mug of tea in her hands. I had rehearsed 1,000 versions of what I'd say. I'm sorry. I'm scared. I need you. But when she opened the door and her eyes widened like I was a ghost, all I could manage was, "Mom, can I come in?" She stepped aside without a word. The hallway smelled the same. Roast chicken, old furniture polish, faint floral perfume. The house that built me, now haunted by the truth I'd unleashed. She led me to the kitchen, where the kettle was already singing. British hospitality. Fear. Rage. Grief. Doesn't matter. There will always be tea. You look thin, she said finally, handing me a chipped mug. I'm fine. I lied. We sat across from each other, the silence heavier than any apology. I didn't know where to begin. Should I tell her about the notes, the photos, ask if Marcus or Clara had sent them? Or did she already know? You didn't come for Christmas, she said, voice soft but sharp enough to cut. You didn't invite me, I shot back before I could stop myself. She flinched, and guilt stabbed my chest. Mum, I'm sorry. I didn't come here to fight. I think someone's following me, leaving me threats. Her eyebrows knitted. Who would do that? I don't know. Marcus? Clara? Maybe Henry? After everything. I trailed off, the kitchen walls closing in. Mum, I'm scared. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine. For a moment, I was 10 again, safe under her touch. I'll talk to Marcus, she said. No, I pulled back. No more secrets. I don't want you warning them. If they're doing this, they won't stop. Her eyes filled with tears. You've torn this family apart, Callista. No, they did. The words burned my throat. They called me a deadbeat. They humiliated me. I just showed the world who they really are. She didn't argue. She just sat there, her tears dripping onto the table like a slow leak. I wanted to reach for her again, but I couldn't. Some rifts can't be patched over with tea and old memories. I left before dusk, Mum's figure framed in the doorway like a ghost refusing to leave its old house. Driving back, I kept checking my mirrors, convinced a car was following, but the roads were empty. That night, my phone buzzed at 2 a.m., unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity pried my fear wide open. "Callista," a voice rasped, male, familiar but muffled. "You think you're safe. Who is this?" I hissed, clutching my blanket like it could protect me. "You ruined us. You don't get to walk away. Family always pays." The line went dead. I didn't sleep after that. I watched the sun crawl up the walls of my flat like a promise I no longer trusted. The next morning, I filed a police report. The constable took my statement with the bland politeness of someone who'd heard it all before. Stalking. Threats. Anonymous notes. "Do you have any proof it's your family?" he asked, pen tapping against the desk. "No. Just history. We'll look into it." He handed me a card I'd never use. Back at work, I felt the walls closing in. Every ring of my phone made me flinch. Every email ping made my skin crawl. I started staying late, pretending I was dedicated when really I was afraid to go home alone. One night, after everyone else had gone, I sat in my cubicle staring at the grainy photo from the first envelope. Me, walking away. Someone had been close enough to snap that, watching me. Breathing the same air. The thought made me gag. "Hey!" A voice made me jump so hard I knocked over my water bottle. I looked up to see Becca, my cubicle neighbor, the only one at work who sometimes asked if I wanted to grab lunch. Her auburn hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you." "It's fine," I lied for the 100th time that week. She glanced at the photo still open on my desk. "You okay, Callista? You've been tense." I wanted to say no. I wanted to spill everything. But habit made me swallow my truth. "I'm fine. Just family stuff." "Family," she snorted, pulling up a chair. "They'll ruin you faster than strangers ever could." I let out a hollow laugh. "You have no idea." "I've got some whiskey in my drawer," she said, eyebrow raised. "Friday night tradition. Come on, one shot before we crawl home to our miserable flats." I hesitated. One shot turned into 2. Then 3. The office felt less like a prison with the burn of cheap whiskey in my veins. Becca's laughter was a lifeline. For an hour I forgot the notes. The photos. The ghost voices in the dark. But when I stumbled home, the 4th envelope was waiting, taped to my door like a death sentence. No note this time. Just ashes inside. A burnt photograph. I unfolded it carefully, my fingers trembling. It was a picture of my childhood home. Mom's house. The edges were blackened, the faces gone. The message was clear. They weren't done with me. Or my family. I collapsed on the hallway floor, the door wide open behind me. The world felt suddenly too small, the walls pressing closer, the ceiling too low. I knew I'd started this. I'd lit the match. But the fire was out of my control now. Family always pays. I had to find out who was behind this before someone really got hurt. And I would, even if it meant going back into the nest of vipers. I'd tried so hard to escape. I picked up my phone and texted Marcus. "We need to talk. Dash, 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 dot." Or did she already know? "You didn't come for Christmas," she said, voice soft but sharp enough to cut. "You didn't invite me," I shot back before I could stop myself. She flinched, and guilt stabbed my chest. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't come here to fight. I think someone's following me, leaving me threats." Her eyebrows knitted. "Who would do that?" "I don't know. Marcus? Clara? Maybe Henry? After everything." I trailed off, the kitchen walls closing in. "Mom, I'm scared." She reached across the table, her hand covering mine. For a moment, I was 10 again, safe under her touch. "I'll talk to Marcus," she said. "No." I pulled back. "No more secrets. I don't want you warning them. If they're doing this, they won't stop." Her eyes filled with tears. "You've torn this family apart, Callista." "No, they did." The words burned my throat. "They called me a deadbeat. They humiliated me. I just showed the world who they really are. She didn't argue. She just sat there, her tears dripping onto the table like a slow leak. I wanted to reach for her again, but I couldn't. Some rifts can't be patched over with tea and old memories. I left before dusk, Mum's figure framed in the doorway like a ghost refusing to leave its old house. Driving back, I kept checking my mirrors, convinced a car was following, but the roads were empty. That night, my phone buzzed at 2 a.m., unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity pried my fear wide open. "Callista," a voice rasped, male, familiar but muffled. "You think you're safe. Who is this?" I hissed, clutching my blanket like it could protect me. "You ruined us. You don't get to walk away. Family always pays." The line went dead. I didn't sleep after that. I watched the sun crawl up the walls of my flat like a promise I no longer trusted. The next morning, I filed a police report. The constable took my statement with the bland politeness of someone who'd heard it all before. Stalking. Threats. Anonymous notes. "Do you have any proof it's your family?" he asked, pen tapping against the desk. "No. Just history. We'll look into it." He handed me a card I'd never use. Back at work, I felt the walls closing in. Every ring of my phone made me flinch. Every email ping made my skin crawl. I started staying late, pretending I was dedicated when really I was afraid to go home alone. One night, after everyone else had gone, I sat in my cubicle staring at the grainy photo from the first envelope. Me, walking away. Someone had been close enough to snap that, watching me. Breathing the same air. The thought made me gag. "Hey!" A voice made me jump so hard I knocked over my water bottle. I looked up to see Becca, my cubicle neighbor, the only one at work who sometimes asked if I wanted to grab lunch. Her auburn hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you." "It's fine," I lied for the 100th time that week. She glanced at the photo still open on my desk. "You okay, Callista? You've been tense." I wanted to say no. I wanted to spill everything, but habit made me swallow my truth. "I'm fine. Just family stuff." "Family," she snorted, pulling up a chair. "They'll ruin you faster than strangers ever could." I let out a hollow laugh. "You have no idea." "I've got some whiskey in my drawer," she said, eyebrow raised. "Friday night tradition. Come on, one shot before we crawl home to our miserable flats." I hesitated. One shot turned into 2. Then 3. The office felt less like a prison with the burn of cheap whiskey in my veins. Becca's laughter was a lifeline. For an hour I forgot the notes, the photos, the ghost voices in the dark. But when I stumbled home, the 4th envelope was waiting, taped to my door like a death sentence. No note this time, just ashes inside, a burnt photograph. I unfolded it carefully, my fingers trembling. It was a picture of my childhood home, Mum's house. The edges were blackened, the faces gone. The message was clear. They weren't done with me, or my family. I collapsed on the hallway floor, the door wide open behind me. The world felt suddenly too small, the walls pressing closer, the ceiling too low. I knew I'd started this. I'd lit the match. But the fire was out of my control now. Family always pays. I had to find out who was behind this before someone really got hurt. And I would, even if it meant going back into the nest of vipers. I'd tried so hard to escape. I picked up my phone and texted Marcus. "We need to talk. Dash, 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 dot." I didn't expect him to answer. A part of me hoped he wouldn't. But within 5 minutes, my phone buzzed with a single word. "Where?" I typed back, "Neutral place." The old cafe near the park. It was the same cafe where we'd gone as kids, holding Mum's hand as she ordered us hot chocolates with tiny marshmallows. Back then, Marcus would tease me, stealing the marshmallows from my mug and grinning like the sun rose for him alone. I'd loved him then, adored him, wanted to be just like him. I almost laughed at the memory now. Almost. The next day, I got there first. I sat in the corner, nursing a mug of lukewarm tea, eyes flicking to every face that walked in. My pulse skittered like a trapped bird. When Marcus finally showed up, I barely recognized him. He looked smaller, not physically. He was still broad-shouldered, in his perfectly pressed work shirt, but something in him had shrunk, like the air around him refused to hold him up. He didn't bother to order anything, just sat down across from me, his eyes hard. "Callista, Marcus." I didn't bother with small talk. "Did you send them?" His jaw ticked. "Send what?" "Don't play dumb. The notes, the photos, the threats. Family always pays." "Was that you? Or Clara? Or both of you together, like some twisted hobby?" His nostrils flared. "You think I have time for your games? I lost my job because of you." I bit back the laugh that clawed up my throat. "Oh, poor Marcus. One job. Try losing everything." His hands curled into fists on the table. For a moment, I thought he might lunge across it, the way we'd fought as kids, him shoving me to the ground, me clawing at his face until Mom pulled us apart. But we weren't kids anymore. Now the bruises were inside. "I didn't send any threats," he spat. "You think I care what happens to you? You made your bed, Callista. Lie in it. But someone does care. Someone wants to scare me. Someone wants to hurt Mom. If it's not you, then who?" He snorted. "You think you're so important everyone's out to get you." I leaned forward, voice low. "They sent me ashes of Mom's house. They're threatening her too. You may hate me, but do you want her dragged into this?" Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, or guilt, or maybe just the glimmer of the brother he used to be. "You're lying." I pulled out my phone and shoved the photo across the table. The burnt edges, the faint outline of our old front porch, the black smear where our family used to stand smiling in matching Christmas jumpers. He paled. "Who else knows?" "No one." I leaned back. "I'm not stupid enough to tell the police everything yet. I don't trust them. I don't trust anyone." He glanced around the cafe, voice dropping. "Henry's been acting weird." My stomach tightened. "Henry? Our cousin Henry? He barely remembers my name." "He's angry," Marcus said. "Said you ruined his chance to get on at my company. HR flagged his interview after you sent those screenshots." I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense. He called me a deadbeat. He started this." Marcus shrugged, bitter. "Doesn't matter who started it. He thinks you owe him." I stared out the window, the park beyond it a blur of green and gray. Henry. Of course. He'd always been the background cousin. Loud, aimless, always half joking about borrowing money, always failing upwards on charm alone. I'd forgotten he existed. That made me dangerous to him. Invisible people don't like being reminded they're invisible. "Where is he now?" I asked. "Probably the pub. He's always there. Or at Mum's, sniffing around for pity." We sat in silence, the old cafe ghosts pressing in around us. I hated him. I hated what he'd said about me. But for a second, we were just siblings again. Two kids huddled together against a storm. "Be careful," he muttered, standing. He didn't say sorry. He didn't say he believed me. But he didn't deny what I saw in his eyes. Fear. I didn't expect him to answer. A part of me hoped he wouldn't. But within 5 minutes, my phone buzzed with a single word. "Where?" I typed back. "Neutral place. The old cafe near the park." It was the same cafe where we'd gone as kids, holding Mum's hand as she ordered us hot chocolates with tiny marshmallows. Back then, Marcus would tease me, stealing the marshmallows from my mug and grinning like the sun rose for him alone. I'd loved him then, adored him, wanted to be just like him. I almost laughed at the memory now. Almost. The next day, I got there first. I sat in the corner, nursing a mug of lukewarm tea, eyes flicking to every face that walked in. My pulse skittered like a trapped bird. When Marcus finally showed up, I barely recognized him. He looked smaller, not physically. He was still broad-shouldered, in his perfectly pressed work shirt. But something in him had shrunk, like the air around him refused to hold him up. He didn't bother to order anything, just sat down across from me, his eyes hard. "Callista?" "Marcus." I didn't bother with small talk. "Did you send them?" His jaw ticked. "Send what?" "Don't play dumb. The notes, the photos, the threats. Family always pays. Was that you? Or Clara? Or both of you together, like some twisted hobby?" His nostrils flared. "You think I have time for your games? I lost my job because of you." I bit back the laugh that clawed at my throat. "Oh, poor Marcus. One job. Try losing everything." His hands curled into fists on the table. For a moment, I thought he might lunge across it, the way we'd fought as kids. Him shoving me to the ground, me clawing at his face until Mum pulled us apart. But we weren't kids anymore. Now the bruises were inside. "I didn't send any threats," he spat. "You think I care what happens to you? You made your bed, Callista. Lie in it. But someone does care. Someone wants to scare me. Someone wants to hurt Mom. If it's not you, then who?" He snorted. "You think you're so important everyone's out to get you." I leaned forward, voice low. "They sent me ashes of Mum's house. They're threatening her too. You may hate me, but do you want her dragged into this?" Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, or guilt, or maybe just the glimmer of the brother he used to be. "You're lying." I pulled out my phone and shoved the photo across the table. The burnt edges, the faint outline of our old front porch, the black smear where our family used to stand smiling in matching Christmas jumpers. He paled. "Who else knows?" "No one." I leaned back. "I'm not stupid enough to tell the police everything yet. I don't trust them. I don't trust anyone." He glanced around the cafe, voice dropping. "Henry's been acting weird." My stomach tightened. "Henry? Our cousin Henry? He barely remembers my name." "He's angry," Marcus said. "Said you ruined his chance to get on at my company. HR flagged his interview after you sent those screenshots." I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense. He called me a deadbeat. He started this." Marcus shrugged, bitter. "Doesn't matter who started it. He thinks you owe him." I stared out the window, the park beyond it a blur of green and gray. Henry. Of course. He'd always been the background cousin, loud, aimless, always half joking about borrowing money, always failing upwards on charm alone. I'd forgotten he existed. That made me dangerous to him. Invisible people don't like being reminded they're invisible. "Where is he now?" I asked. "Probably the pub. He's always there. Or at Mum's, sniffing around for pity." We sat in silence, the old cafe ghosts pressing in around us. I hated him. I hated what he'd said about me. But for a second, we were just siblings again. Two kids huddled together against a storm. "Be careful," he muttered, standing. He didn't say sorry. He didn't say he believed me. But he didn't deny what I saw in his eyes. Fear. I watched him leave, the bell over the door tinkling like a warning. Dash, 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 dot, dot. I didn't sleep that night. I dug through old messages, old posts, piecing together the web that connected us all. Henry hadn't posted anything in weeks. Unusual for him. I found a photo of him at a pub, pint in hand, grin sloppy, the caption bragging about family loyalty. The comments underneath stank of the same bitterness that had filled my group chat that night. "Don't cross your own blood. Deadbeats get what's coming." It was like stepping into a snake pit, every hiss more venomous than the last. The days after the court win felt like someone had turned the volume down on my life. The noise was still there. Elliot's rants online, Lena's crocodile tears, Jody's half-baked attempts to paint herself as the real victim, but they all sounded like they were coming from underwater, muffled, distant. I was supposed to feel vindicated. Some days, I did. Other days, I felt nothing at all. Becca didn't push. She hovered at the edges of my new place, bringing bags of groceries she refused to let me pay her back for, adding little pieces of warmth to the two empty corners. A potted fern on my windowsill. A chipped mug that said, "Good trouble," in faded letters. On nights when I couldn't sleep, I'd find her on the sofa, legs tucked under a blanket, eyes bloodshot but steady. "I'm here," she'd whisper without being asked. It should have been enough. Sometimes it was. ... One morning, I woke up to an email with the subject line, "Media Inquiry." I almost deleted it. Half the time, it was just tabloids fishing for dirt they could spin into clickbait. But this one was different. A podcast producer. "I read your essays. We'd love to have you on. Tell your story in your own words." Becca was ecstatic. "You have to do it," she said, pacing my living room with her phone clutched to her chest. "It's your voice, Marissa. Unfiltered. No edits. No headlines twisting your words." I wanted to say yes. I also wanted to throw up. What if I mess it up? What if I freeze? "Then you freeze," she said. "And you keep going anyway. That's what you do." ... I sat in the studio 2 weeks later, headphones too big for my head, knees bouncing under the table. The host was kind, a woman named Tasha who spoke like every word was wrapped in velvet. "You take your time," she said, tapping her notes. "It's your story. We're just here to listen." So I told them. I told them about the group chat, about Deadbeat, about the screenshots, about the letters shoved through my door, the keyed car, the knock in the night. I told them about how silence can taste like poison when it sits in your mouth too long. And when my throat closed up, when I stumbled over the part about Mum's letter, I felt Becca's hand on my knee, even though she wasn't there. When we finished, Tasha squeezed my hand. "There's going to be a woman out there," she said softly, "sitting on her bathroom floor, reading every word you wrote. And she's going to stand up because you did." It was the first time I believed it could matter. ... The episode dropped on a Monday. By Tuesday, my inbox was a mess. Some hate, sure, but mostly messages that read like little lifelines. I thought I was the only one. "You made me brave enough to leave. Your family sounds just like mine." Becca found me crying over my laptop, tears splashing onto my keyboard. She grabbed my face in her hands. "This is it," she whispered. "This is why you did it." But even then, I felt it. The old dread curling in my chest like smoke. Because the more people listened, the louder the other voices got too. The trolls. The family friends who couldn't believe you'd do this to your mother. The ones who said, "Family is family. You should have kept it in the house." One night, an email slipped through my spam folder. No subject line. Just 2 sentences. "You think you're safe behind your stories? We haven't forgotten." I read it over and over, my chest buzzing like a live wire. I showed Becca. She took my laptop from my hands and set it aside. "It's noise," she said. "They're too cowardly to say it to your face." "What if they do?" She pulled me into her arms, her chin resting on the top of my head. "Then we deal with it, together." ... I wish I could say that made the fear disappear. It didn't. I double-checked the locks every night. I jumped when I heard footsteps in the hall. But I didn't stop writing. If anything, I wrote harder. I started a newsletter, the Deadbeat Diaries. I posted pieces too raw for the big sites. Little scraps of memory I'd never shared before. The subscribers grew by the hundreds, then thousands. Strangers sent me poems, photos of notes they'd left for themselves on bathroom mirrors. You don't owe them your silence. It became a ritual. Every Sunday, I'd post an essay. Then Becca and I would sit on my floor eating cheap takeaway, reading the replies out loud to each other. She'd cackle at the trolls, highlight the good ones with a pink marker. "This," she'd say, tapping my forehead with the marker cap, "this is what they can't stand." You're still standing. But it wasn't just me they were after anymore. I saw it in Becca's eyes the night she came home late, her cheek bruised purple under the streetlight. "Some jerk shoved me," she said, trying to wave it off. "Probably just random." But I knew. And she knew. We just didn't say it out loud. Because if we did, it would make it real. ... I installed another camera. Becca called it overkill. but she didn't fight me when I drilled the brackets myself. Every new noise outside made my stomach clench. I found myself pressing my ear to the door, half expecting Elliot's voice on the other side. The letter stopped coming, but the fear didn't. Then one night, Becca woke me up, shaking my shoulder so hard I gasped. "Marissa, the porch!" I stumbled to the window. There, nailed to the front step, was a dead bird. Its wings spread wide, tiny nails pinning it in place like some grotesque warning. Becca's breath hitched beside me. "Call the police," I said, my voice shaking. She grabbed her phone. "Already did." They came, took photos, mumbled something about probably just kids before driving off into the night. Becca wrapped her arms around me while I stared at the stain on the porch boards, the imprint that wouldn't wash away even after she scrubbed it clean. "They're trying to scare you quiet," she said. "They don't get to win." But in the dark, with the smell of bleach clinging to my hands, I wondered how many more pieces of myself I'd have to burn before they finally let me go. .. The next morning, I opened my laptop and wrote a post that felt like peeling my skin off layer by layer. "They put a dead bird on my porch," I typed. "They want me scared. I am, but I'm also angry, and I'm done hiding." I attached photos, proof that this wasn't just drama, that it wasn't just words. I told my subscribers, "If anything happens to me, you'll know who to look at first." The post exploded. News sites picked it up. I did radio interviews, my voice shaking but steady enough. People showed up in my inbox with offers. "We'll crowdfund your security. I have a spare room in my city if you need to disappear for a while. Stay loud, we're with you." Becca found me in my little kitchen that night, hands braced on the counter, staring at my reflection in the cracked window. "They think they've got you cornered," she said. "But you're a damn storm, Marissa Holloway. You're not cornered, you're just gathering force." This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. .. The next letter didn't come through my door. It came through my lawyer. A last-ditch threat. "We're considering additional action." Defamation. Harassment. All the same tired lines they'd tried before. Emma, my lawyer, read it with an arched eyebrow. "They have nothing. This is theater." "So what do we do?" I asked. "We make noise," she said. "We remind them, you don't scare easy." Becca leaned back in her chair, feet propped on the table. "Let's make them wish they'd stayed quiet instead." And that was the moment I knew. They'd come for me again. But this time, I was ready to burn the whole rotten house down if I had to. Because the only thing more dangerous than a girl called Deadbeat was a girl who had nothing left to lose. And this time, I wouldn't run. The day after the dead bird, Becca wouldn't let me leave the house alone. She hovered by the door every time I so much as reached for my keys. "Where are you going? When will you be back?" At first, I bristled at the fuss. Didn't she get it? I didn't want to be watched. But the second I heard the floor creak in the hall at 3 a.m., my bravado cracked. I found her sitting on the couch in the dark, mug of tea forgotten in her hands. She looked up, eyes ringed with exhaustion. "Can't sleep?" she asked. I shook my head. She patted the cushion beside her. So I sat. No words. Just our shoulders pressed together while the wind rattled the windows like ghost fingers. I kept waiting for the dread to loosen its grip, but it clung tight. Even the clink of the radiator made me flinch. Each email notification made my stomach twist. It felt like the walls of my new life were made of paper, and every whisper from my old one could slice through at any moment. But fear is a funny thing. If you sit with it long enough, it changes shape. By dawn, it didn't feel like poison anymore. It felt like fuel. ... When the podcast producer called back, "They want you on the national news, Marissa, the big network," I nearly dropped my phone. Becca caught it midair, cackling. "Oh, you're gonna look so good on camera. she teased. I snorted. I'm gonna look like a deer in headlights. But under the panic, something electric buzzed in my bones. Let them see. Let the whole world see who I am when they think they've broken me. The network sent a car to pick me up. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, didn't say much, just glanced at me in the rearview mirror when he pulled up outside Becca's building. "You got this, love," he said. He didn't know a thing about me, but I clung to those words like armor. The studio was cold. Everything smelled of cheap coffee and nerves. The host was polished, smiling the way people do when they want to sell your pain like a headline. "We're so inspired by your courage," she said, powder puffing my cheeks until I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Inspired. I wondered if she'd be inspired if she'd woken up to a dead bird on her porch. When the red light blinked on, my chest went tight. "Why did you post the screenshots?" she asked, leaning forward like she was peering into my soul. "Why blow up your own family like that?" I looked right at the camera. I thought of Elliot's voice, dripping with contempt. "You're nothing without us." I thought of Mom's trembling letters. The porch. The bird. The nights I couldn't breathe. "Because the truth matters more than the people who profit from your silence," I said. "Because I was never their shame to bury." The host blinked, her smile faltering. "And do you regret it?" I leaned back. No, not for a second. When I left the studio, my hands shook so badly I couldn't get my seatbelt on. The driver reached over, buckling it gently like I was a child. "You did good, love," he said. I closed my eyes, pressing his words into the cracks they'd carved in me. Dash, 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 dot, dot. Back home, Becca was pacing the hallway, phone in her hand. "You killed it," she said. "They won't know what hit them," but I could see the worry pinched around her eyes. "What is it?" I asked. She hesitated. "While you were gone, someone slipped another letter under the door." I felt my pulse spike. "What did it say?" She held it out. Cheap white envelope. No stamp, no return. Inside, just 4 words, block letters like a brand burned into my skull. "You think this ends?" I crumpled the paper in my fist. "They're desperate. They're cornered," Becca said. "And that's when people do stupid things." Dash, 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 dot. We reported it again. The police came. Another incident number scribbled on a post-it note. Another shrug. "No direct threat," the officer mumbled, scratching his chin like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Maybe lay low for a while." Lay low. As if silence had ever saved me. When they left, I slumped onto the floor, back against the door. Becca sat across from me, legs crossed like we were kids again, sharing secrets after lights out. "You know what scares them the most?" she said, tapping my knee. "Not the police, not your lawyer, it's that you won't shut up." I let that settle deep in my chest. The truth was a wildfire, and I was the spark they'd underestimated. Dash, 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 dot, dot. The next day, I did the thing I'd promised myself I wouldn't do. I called Mom. I don't know what I was hoping for. An apology? A confession? Just proof she was still human under all the ways she'd let them weaponize her love? She picked up on the second ring. "Marissa?" Her voice was small. "You shouldn't call." "They're still sending letters," I said. "They left a dead bird." "Do you know who it is?" Silence. Then a tiny, shaky breath. "I don't want to be in the middle." I felt something crack. "You've always been in the middle. You just never picked me." "Marissa, please." I ended the call. It felt like slamming a door on a draft that had chilled me since I was 5 years old. Dash, 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 dot, dot. I wrote about it that night. Raw. Ugly. I didn't edit out the part where I still wish she'd pick me. Didn't soften the lines about the bird, the porch, the post-it notes from the police that felt more useless than toilet paper. The essay spread like wildfire. Family always pays. That's what I titled it. Hundreds of comments. Thousands of shares. Some people called me a hero. Some called me ungrateful. But every new message from a stranger, me too, was another splinter pulled from my chest. Dash, 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 dot, dot. They tried to scare me silent again. Elliot posted a video on his social media. Him, fake crying about my sister's betrayal, how she ruined our family for likes. Becca made popcorn and put it on the TV, cackling at every crocodile tear. "Should we start a drinking game?" she asked. "One shot every time he calls you selfish." I laughed until I choked on cheap wine. Because the more he lied, the more he showed the world exactly who he was. But then it got worse. A message from an anonymous account. A photo of Becca leaving the grocery store. Grainy, taken from a car window. The caption? "Next time, she won't see us coming." Becca went pale. "Marissa, this isn't about me. It's about us," I snapped. "And they don't get to touch you." I forwarded it to the police. Another shrug. "Probably just trolls." But I knew better. And so did Becca. Dash, 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 dot, dot. That night, we sat in my living room, lights off, my phone buzzing with new threats every hour. I pulled out the folder, receipts, and laid it on the floor between us. "They think this will shut me up," I said. "But what if I push back harder? What if I don't just write essays? What if I go to the people who trusted them? Elliot's clients, Lena's new job, Jody's boss. What if I remind them who they really hired?" Becca's eyes glittered in the dim light. "You'd torch them for good." "They want a war?" I said. "Then let's give them one." She reached across the folder, her hand warm in mine. "Then let's burn it down." We sat there until dawn, planning every email, every file, every shred of proof. When the sun rose over the wreckage of what used to be my fear, I felt it, the shift. The part of me that used to flinch had learned how to bare its teeth. Because you can only call someone a deadbeat for so long before they remember dead things can't be controlled. And I wasn't dead. Not even close. Dash, 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 dot, dot. When Becca left that night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk, the city's midnight hush pressing against my window like a secret. My laptop glowed with a single Word document. Family Always Pays by Callista Everhart. That was the working title, the only one that made sense. I wrote until dawn. Every word felt like carving the rot out of my bones. Each detail, a slash of truth they couldn't take back. The humiliations, the petty betrayals, the knife twists that my mother called love and Marcus called family loyalty. I wrote it all. And when my eyes blurred and my fingers cramped, I didn't stop. This was mine now. My story. They'd tried to bury me under shame and secrets. They'd failed. When the sun cracked over the rooftops, I leaned back in my chair, bones aching, head spinning. I looked at the pages, tens of thousands of words, raw and jagged like a wound that would never heal right. I didn't want it to heal. Some wounds you keep open so you never forget. Becca called just after 9. "Did you sleep? Does it matter?" I asked. She snorted. "You're insufferable. I booked us a table at the diner tonight. Pancakes the size of our heads. Bring the manuscript. We'll toast to your revenge." I smiled. My first real smile in weeks. "You're bossy. And you love me for it." She hung up. Dash, 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 dot, dot. But life, as always, doesn't let you revel too long. That afternoon, my door buzzed. I squinted through the peephole. A man in a cheap gray suit. He looked like a debt collector or a bad insurance salesman. I opened the door an inch, chain still on. "Callista Everhart?" "Who's asking?" He handed me an envelope through the gap. "You've been served." His eyes didn't meet mine. "Have a good day." And then he was gone, footsteps echoing down the stairwell. My hands shook as I tore it open. A thick wad of paper. Legalese. Defamation. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Clara's name in bold black letters, like she'd stamped her ego across the whole page. I laughed, an ugly hysterical bark that bounced off my kitchen walls. Of course she'd sue me. Of course she'd try to bury me under the weight of a lawsuit I could never afford to fight. This was her final move. If she couldn't scare me quiet, she'd bankrupt me instead. I called Becca. Guess who's suing me? Her sigh crackled down the line. I'll bring wine. Dash, 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 dot, dot. That night at the diner, we sat in a battered red booth, while waitresses in paper hats slid pancakes and fries under our noses. Becca skimmed the legal papers, her brow furrowed. This is bluff, she said. She doesn't have a real case. You have recordings, evidence. It's a scare tactic. And what if it works? I can't afford a lawyer, Becca. She stabbed a pancake with her fork like it was Clara's smug face. Then we'll crowdfund. Or sell your story. Or both. You are not going down like this. Her certainty was a lighthouse. I clung to it. But in the dark corners of my mind, doubt crept in. What if they twisted it? What if they made me the villain again? The courts didn't care about justice. They cared about who had the money to shout the loudest. We finished our food in silence, our shoulders touching like two soldiers huddled in a trench. When we stepped outside, the city air was sharp and alive. Becca squeezed my hand. Remember, she said, you are not your family's shame. I nodded. I know. I didn't. Not fully. But I wanted to. Dash, 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 dot, dot. I spent the next week buried in paperwork. Becca's old uni friend, Elena, a junior solicitor with a pit bull streak, agreed to help me pro bono. This is open and shut, she told me over coffee. She won't win. You have more than enough proof you spoke the truth. Truth doesn't pay my rent, I muttered. She patted my hand. Neither does silence. When the story went live on the site, it exploded. Hundreds of comments, messages from strangers. Some calling me brave. Others calling me an attention seeker. A liar. A snake. I read them all. The praise felt like a bomb. The hate, like tiny cuts that never fully healed. Marcus texted again. How could you do this to us? I didn't reply. Mom texted once. A single line. Please stop. I didn't. Becca read every comment, every email. She printed out the best ones and taped them to my fridge. For when you feel like giving up, she said. I loved her more than I knew how to say. Dash, 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 dot, dot. The court date loomed like a storm cloud. I lay awake every night, replaying possible questions, imagining Clara's lawyer twisting my words. I'd stand there, exposed, my life ripped open in a courtroom full of strangers. But I'd do it. I'd stand there for the girl I used to be, the one who bent and apologized and swallowed poison just to keep the family peace. One night, Becca found me staring at my wall of screenshots. You should come stay with me for a bit, she said. Get out of this flat. I can't. Why not? I gestured around the cramped living room. This mess is mine. I need to sit in it. She didn't argue. She just sat beside me on the floor and passed me half a bag of crisps. Dash, 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 dot, dot. The morning of the hearing, I wore my best dress, a deep green wrap I'd bought on clearance last year. It made me feel like someone else. Someone braver. Becca drove me to the courthouse, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. You got this, she said as we pulled up to the gray stone building. I stepped out, legs trembling, heart hammering. I thought of Dad, how he'd told me once. The truth always finds a way out, Callista. Even if you bury it deep. He'd been drunk when he said it, but it stuck. Inside, the courtroom smelled like stale carpet and cheap coffee. Clara sat at the opposite table, all pearls and pastel blazer. She didn't look at me. Marcus sat behind her, eyes darting away when I met his stare. Coward. The judge was a tired woman in half-moon glasses. She glanced between us, bored already. The lawyers spoke. Words blurred together. Defamation. Malicious intent. Emotional harm. Elena leaned over, whispering reminders. Truth is your shield. Stick to it. When it was my turn, I stood. My knees shook, but my voice didn't. I told them everything. How they'd mocked me. How I'd snapped. How Clara orchestrated threats to shut me up. I played the recording. Her voice filled the room. Calm, hateful, unmistakable. I saw the judge's eyes narrow. Clara's shoulders stiffened. When it was over, the judge didn't deliberate long. Case dismissed. The defendant acted within her rights to share truthful information. Just like that. The gavel came down. Clara's mouth twisted, her mask cracking. Marcus stood too fast, knocking his chair over. I turned my back on them both. Outside, Becca grabbed me in a bone-crushing hug. "You did it!" I buried my face in her shoulder and sobbed. Not because I'd won, but because, for once, they hadn't. ... It didn't end there. Nothing ever does. Clara lost her job for good this time. Marcus tried to salvage what was left of his reputation, but every lie he'd told left a stain. Mom called me once, a voice message I never played. I'd heard enough. I moved out of my flat 2 months later. Becca and I found a tiny house by the coast. Peeling paint, weeds in the garden. Perfect. I kept writing. More stories. More truths. Not just mine, other people's too. Because when you shine light into the dark, you find you're not alone in it. One morning, I walked to the shore, bare feet in cold sand, wind tearing at my hair. I thought of that girl they called a deadbeat. How she'd clawed her way out from under their feet. How she'd kept receipts. How she'd learned the cost of silence. Family always pays, they'd said. But they'd been wrong. I did. And I was done paying. ... They say when you cut the cord from the people who made you, something else grows in its place. Something wild, raw, a kind of freedom you've never tasted before. But they don't tell you about the nights when that freedom turns sour, when you wake up wondering if you'll ever feel whole again. After the court case, I thought the worst was over. Becca and I moved into our little coastal house, a battered cottage that smelled of salt and old plaster. We painted the kitchen ourselves, our laughter echoing through the empty rooms. For a while it felt like a victory, like starting over. But starting over means you carry the ghosts with you. Some mornings I'd wake before dawn and see Marcus's name on my phone. Not real, just a phantom echo. I'd half expect a knock on the door. Clara in her perfect blazer, telling me she'd found a new way to bleed me dry. But the knocks never came. Becca, though, she was the lighthouse. She'd brew us coffee before the sun rose, her hair a tangled halo, her eyes soft and fierce at once. She never asked if I regretted it. She knew the answer. Some truths come with scars you'd wear 1,000 times over. I spent hours on my laptop, my fingers carving out stories like confessionals. The editor at the digital magazine asked for more. People want to hear the aftermath, she said. What it feels like to survive your own family. So I gave it to them. The ugly, the tender. The parts that made people squirm. The comments were a new battlefield. Strangers praising my strength, while others called me a parasite, an attention seeker. But I'd learned to live with the noise. One night, Becca found me scrolling through the old group chat screenshots. She sat beside me, cross-legged on the threadbare rug. "Still torturing yourself?" I shrugged. "It's not torture. It's armor." She cocked an eyebrow. "Want to see my armor?" Before I could ask, she pulled out her phone and showed me her own family group chat. Dozens of passive-aggressive messages, half-hearted birthday wishes, and the one that made me snort. "Stop embarrassing the family, Becca." She grinned. "We're all just survivors of a million tiny cuts, Callista. You just said enough first." I laughed until my eyes burned. ... It wasn't all healing and candlelit evenings. The new house had leaks that turned our bedroom into a swimming pool every time it rained. The neighbors were nosy old women who peeked through the hedge and whispered when I walked by. Once one of them asked, "Are you that girl from the article? The one who destroyed her own family?" I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, I'm the girl who survived them." She never spoke to me again. But the real storm hit when Mum finally tracked me down. She'd left 100 messages by then, all unanswered. But one Tuesday morning I opened the door to find her on my front step, her suitcase at her feet like some tragic prop. "Callista," she said. Her voice cracked. I didn't know where else to go. I stood frozen in the doorway, Becca behind me in her dressing gown. For a moment, I saw the mother who'd tucked me in at night, the one who'd baked me birthday cakes from scratch when Dad forgot. Then I saw the woman who'd begged me to stay quiet, who'd called me selfish for airing out the truth. Becca cleared her throat. "I'll make tea," she muttered, slipping inside. "Some people say healing is a straight road, like if you walk long enough in the right direction, you'll come out the other side untouched, scrubbed clean. But it's more like a spiral. You keep circling back to the same wounds, tracing the scar tissue, finding new edges to peel open. After Mum left, the house felt different. Lighter in some rooms, heavier in others. Becca and I fell into a new rhythm. Coffee before dawn, our laptops humming in the tiny kitchen, the smell of salt and wet earth drifting through the cracked windows. On good days, the words poured out of me. On bad days, I sat staring at the blinking cursor, the old group chat screenshots pinned to my corkboard like talismans against forgetting. I didn't talk to Marcus or Henry. Or Clara. Their silence was a fence I no longer rattled. Sometimes Becca caught me scrolling through my old contact list. "Thinking about calling them?" she'd ask. And I'd shake my head. I wasn't that girl anymore. ... One morning, an email pinged in my inbox. Subject line: TV rights inquiry. For a second, I thought it was a prank. But the production company was real. A mid-tier outfit that specialized in gritty family dramas. They wanted my story. Not just the article, not just the messy details. They wanted the whole thing. A limited series, 12 episodes. Raw, unflinching, and deeply human, the producer wrote. I laughed when I read that part. Deeply human. Like it was some noble tragedy instead of a parade of humiliations and threats and bruises that hadn't fully faded. Becca came home from work to find me pacing the living room, the email printed out and taped to the wall next to my conspiracy board. "Is this real?" she asked. "I don't know." I laughed again, sharp and hollow. What if they ruin it? What if they make me a villain? What if they turn me into some damsel with bad eyebrows and no backbone? She pulled me onto the sofa, her hands on my shoulders. "Then you make sure they don't. You stay in control. You tell them it's your story or nothing." I shook my head. I don't know if I want the world to see it like that, the dirty parts. The parts one still can't look at straight. "They already saw the shiny parts," she said. "The perfect family photos, the smiling Christmas cards. Let them see the rest." I sat with it. Days passed. The producer called. We spoke for hours. Her voice calm, patient. "You'd have final say," she promised. "This isn't a hatchet job. This is about survival." In the end, it wasn't about the money. It was about the kid I used to be. The one who whispered, "If they knew what you really are, they'd never love you." Now I wanted them to know, all of it. So I signed, ... Becca popped a bottle of cheap Prosecco that night. "To Callista Everhart," she said, her grin wide and wicked. "Future streaming star." "Don't jinx it," I muttered. But I laughed when she draped an old bed sheet around my shoulders like a Hollywood red carpet. We drank on the kitchen floor until dawn, the bottle rolling between us like a confessional. She told me about her mother, how she'd left when Becca was 9, a note tucked under her pillow that just said, "Be brave." How Becca's father had spent years pretending she'd run off with another man, only to learn she'd been living in a women's shelter one town over. "She didn't run away from him," Becca said that night, her head in my lap, eyes glassy. "She ran toward herself." It made sense, the way she understood my mess. We were both daughters of mothers who hid behind silence. Both girls who'd learned too early how sharp love could be. I stroked her hair until her breathing slowed. In the morning, I woke up alone on the floor, the sun a warm knife through the kitchen window. Becca's note sat on my chest. "Gone to get bagels. Don't sell my life story while I'm gone. Love you. ... The production meetings started small, Zoom calls, script notes, voice recordings. The actress they cast to play me was nothing like me. Tall, statuesque, with this wild mane of black curls. I wanted to hate her, but the first time we spoke, she said, "Your story made me call my mom for the first time in 5 years." I couldn't hate that. Mom called too when she heard. "A TV show?" she asked, her voice small. "Are you sure?" "No," I said, "but I'm doing it." She didn't argue. "Will you tell them about me?" "I'll tell them the truth." She was silent for so long, I thought the line had gone dead. "I guess that's fair," she said at last. ... The closer we got to production, the more the past felt like something alive under my skin. I'd be chopping vegetables in our tiny kitchen, and I'd hear Marcus's laugh from some memory I hadn't touched in years. Or I'd see Clara's face in the mirror behind my own. Becca caught me flinching once when my phone buzzed. "You're safe," she whispered, pressing her forehead to mine. "You're not that girl anymore." But some nights, I wondered if that was true. If you can ever really kill the parts of yourself that believed you deserved it. ... Then came the letter. Slid under our door like a curse. No stamp, no return address. Just my name in blocky capitals and inside, one yellowed Polaroid. Me, 7 years old, grinning at the beach. Marcus beside me, his arm slung over my shoulder like he owned me. On the back, in a familiar hand, "Family always pays." I dropped it like it was acid. Becca found me pacing a hallway, the photo on the doormat. "What is it?" she asked, scooping it up. "A ghost," I whispered, "or maybe just a reminder." She turned it over, her jaw tightening. "Who would send this?" "Does it matter?" I snapped. "It never ends. Even now, it never ends." "It does," she said, her voice fierce. "We end it." We burned it that night. In the garden, under a low moon. We watched the Polaroid curl and blacken, the flame eating away at those 2 kids who didn't know yet what was waiting for them. The ashes floated up, tiny sparks into the dark. I wanted to believe they'd carry that part of me away for good. ... When the production wrapped 6 months later, I stood on the set, a cheap replica of my childhood home. The wallpaper too bright, the kitchen too small. The actress playing me sat at the plastic dinner table, her hands curled around a fake mug of tea. I watched her for a long time. It was like peering into a memory I'd already outgrown. When they called "cut," she looked up at me, eyes shining. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me tell this." I nodded, unable to speak. Outside the studio, Becca waited in the car, engine idling. She reached for my hand as I slid into the passenger seat. "Ready to go home?" she asked. I squeezed her fingers. "We're already there." I looked back at the building, that fake house, those borrowed ghosts. Then I turned away for good. ... By the time the show hit the screens, our little seaside town buzzed with gossip. Old ladies at the corner shop would glance at me like I was an exhibit in a human zoo. Teenagers pointed me out when I walked by the beach, whispering, "That's her, the deadbeat who wrecked her own family." The word deadbeat didn't sting the way it used to. I wore it like armor now. Let them think what they wanted. Becca and I watched the premiere curled up on our battered sofa, a bowl of salty popcorn balanced on my knees. I half expected to hate it, to see my worst moments twisted into something glossy and cheap. But it was brutal, real, messy in all the ways I needed it to be. I saw the girl who used to swallow every slight, every backhanded comment, and I saw her crawl out of that wreckage covered in scars but still standing. When the credits rolled, Becca wiped her eyes and grinned at me through tears. "That's you. That's your roar." I pressed my forehead to hers. "It's ours. ... But the thing about putting your pain on display is that it draws people out of the woodwork. Emails flooded my inbox. Women with stories like mine. Men, too. Grown sons who'd walked away from families that called them ungrateful, selfish, traitors. Some messages were hate mail, of course. People who said I'd made it all up for pity or profit. I saved every one. I printed the worst of them, pinned them to the wall above my desk like trophies. Proof I'd rattled the right cages. Mum called me one evening while I was editing my next essay. "It's on every channel," she said, her voice shaky. "The neighbors stopped me in the street. Some say you should be ashamed." "And what do you say?" I asked. She hesitated. "I say you told the truth." It wasn't forgiveness. Not exactly. But it felt like an apology in a language she was only just learning. A few weeks later, I found Marcus waiting for me outside the cafe Becca and I loved. A little place tucked behind the dunes, where the windows rattled when the wind blew. He looked older, grayer, like the world had finally started peeling him down to the bone the way he'd done to me for years. "Callista," he said, his hands buried in his pockets like he was afraid they might betray him. "Don't," I said. "Don't do this here. Please." He gestured to the bench outside. 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I sat. The wind whipped my hair into my mouth, stinging my eyes with cold salt. He didn't speak right away, just stared at his feet. "You destroyed us," he said finally. I laughed, a small, humorless sound. "No, Marcus, you destroyed us. I just pulled back the curtain." His jaw worked. "Clara left, took the kids. They hate me now." "Good." I didn't soften it. He flinched like I'd slapped him. "She says it's your fault." ... "Of course she does. Blame me all you want, I don't care anymore." "Con." His eyes met mine, dark and hollow. "What do you want from me? An apology? You think that fixes anything?" "I don't want anything from you." I stood. "That's the difference now. You don't get to rent space in my head anymore." I left him there, hunched on that bench, staring at the sea like it might give him back everything he'd lost. I didn't look back. ... That night, I stood on our porch while Becca smoked a cigarette, her hair wild in the sea wind. "You okay?" she asked. "Better than okay," I said. For the first time in my life, I told Marcus to go to hell, and meant it. She grinned. "About time." She flicked her ash into the dark. "You know, sometimes I think about your story, the parts that didn't make it onto the screen. How you still wake up some nights, looking for threats that aren't there." I looked at her. "You think I should have left it buried?" She scoffed. "No, I think you're braver than any of them. But I want you to know you can stop fighting now if you want. You've earned the right to just be." I watched the waves crash against the shore, the foam glowing under the streetlight. "Maybe one day," I said. "But not tonight." ... The months blurred into a strange new normal. I wrote more stories. I spoke at small conferences, libraries, community centers. People came up to me afterwards, eyes shining, pressing my hands in theirs like I'd given them permission to say the unsayable. Mum came to one of those talks. She sat in the back, hands folded in her lap. When I caught her eye, she looked away. But afterwards, she hugged me so tight I could feel every apology she couldn't speak. Sometimes I wondered if Marcus watched the show. If he saw himself through my eyes for the first time. If he lay awake at night, replaying the words he couldn't unsay. I hoped he did. Let him live with it. I didn't owe him forgiveness just because we shared blood. Becca and I made the house our fortress. We fixed the leaks, painted every wall in wild colors. Seafoam green in the kitchen, burnt orange in the tiny guest room. We planted herbs on the windowsill. We hosted messy dinners with people who felt like chosen family. Friends who'd read my work and said, "Me too," with trembling smiles. The old group chat stayed pinned above my desk. Not because I needed the reminder of who they were, but because I needed to remember who I was when I finally walked away. Some nights, when the wind howled and the old floorboards creaked, I'd lie awake and think about the dead bird on my doorstep. The ashes. The notes. The threats. I'd think about the girl who flinched at every knock. And I'd whisper to her in the dark, "We're okay now, we're okay." ... One evening, Becca and I sat on the back steps, mugs of tea warming our hands. The garden was overgrown, The fence half collapsed from too many coastal storms. It was perfect. Ever think about seeing them again? She asked. Who? Marcus. Henry. Clara. I snorted. God, no. She nudged me with her shoulder. Not even to rub it in? Look at me now? I shook my head. The best revenge was surviving them. Everything else is just noise. She raised her mug. To surviving. I clinked mine against hers. To surviving. The sky darkened, the waves roaring beyond the dunes, and for once, the ghosts stayed quiet. Dash 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 dot.